Freedom Forum 2. A couple of reminders. The gun show is this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, at the Event Center on Johnson Street, across from the car dealership. Anyways, you'll be able to find it. I think it's 9 to 4 on Saturday and 10 to 4 on Sunday. Also, tomorrow night, there is no Acadiana Patriots meeting at Robichaux Center due to Valentine's Day. So all you lovebirds out there, go have a good time on Valentine's Day. We coming back next month, hopefully with a little forum before the session starts. We'll see what happens. I finished up the first hour with an article about Pelosi meeting with the president of Mexico, who was given $100 million by El Chapo. I don't have anything for sure, but as I've always believed and learned over the years now, in the 10 years I've been doing this, just follow the money. To me, it kind of shows why we don't want to build the wall, why all of a sudden Schumer and Pelosi and all them people don't want to build that wall. Here's an article I found interesting. Trump war against socialism will fail. The statement at the very top of the article says it all. We socialists are trying to save capitalism. Huh? And the damn capitalists won't let us. Let me read that again. We socialists are trying to save capitalism, and the damn capitalists won't let us. I find that interesting. You know, when I talk about people or with people about socialism, get ready to run that video, T. And I always hear about Sweden, the socialistic successful country of Sweden. Well, guess what? We got a video. You need to watch this video because now my gun is loaded because I got the facts on Sweden. And guess what? It's not a socialistic country. And you're going to see this her boy Stossel from Fox. So go ahead and run that puppy. It'll amaze you.
Today, many Americans don't like capitalism. Socialism would be better, they say. Not repressive Russian or Venezuelan socialism, but democratic socialism, like what's practiced in Scandinavia.
I think we should look to countries like Denmark, like Sweden.
Say, wow, you want to be like Sweden? Kinda. Sounds pretty good.
People interviewed in this just-released PBS documentary say America should be more like Sweden.
It seems like it's like a place that, like, no problems or something.
It is a socialist economy.
Volvos and socialized medicine.
Volvo is now a Chinese company.
Welcome to Stockholm, Sweden. My name is Johan Norberg, and this is where I was born and raised.
Johan Norberg made this documentary because he wanted to set the record straight.
Sweden is not socialist because the government doesn't own the means of production. To see that, you have to go to Venezuela or to Cuba or North Korea. But we did have a period in the 1970s and 1980s when we had something that resembled socialism, a big government that taxed and spent heavily. And that's the period in Swedish history when our economy was going south.
So much so that even socialists complained about the high taxes.
Astrid Lindgren, who wrote the very popular children's books, Pippi Longstocking, for instance, she was a social democrat, but she had made a lot of money from her books. She found that she paid 102% in taxes.
She wrote this angry essay about a witch who was quite mean and vicious, but not at all as vicious as the Swedish tax authorities.
And yet, even though taxes were high, they did not bring in enough money to fund Sweden's welfare state.
There were waiting lines to get health care. People couldn't get the pension that they thought that they depended on for the future. At that point, the Swedish population just said, enough, we can't do this.
Sweden then reduced government's role. They cut public spending, privatized the national rail network, abolished certain government monopolies, eliminated inheritance taxes, and sold state-owned businesses like the maker of Absolute Vodka.
Lower taxes, reform the pension system so that it wasn't unsustainable.
The results from the spending cuts and privatization?
This impoverished peasant nation developed into one of the world's richest countries.
All I hear is that Sweden is this socialist paradise.
We do have a bigger welfare state than the US, higher taxes than the US, but in other areas, when it comes to free markets, when it comes to competition, when it comes to free trade, Sweden is actually more free market.
That free market pays for Sweden's big welfare programs.
Today, our taxes pay for pensions. You call it social security. For 18-month paid parental leave, government paid childcare for working families.
But
having the government manage all of these things didn't work well. So we had to manage it in another way.
They privatized.
We realized in Sweden that with these government monopolies, we don't get the innovation that we get when we have competition.
And this is particularly true for the school system.
Sweden switched to a school voucher system that lets parents pick their kids' school and forces schools to compete.
And one of the results that we've seen is not just that the private schools are better than the public ones, but even the public schools in the vicinity of private schools, they often improve because they have to.
Sweden's version of Social Security was going broke, so Sweden privatized that too. Privatized the pension system. That terrifies people.
And obviously that scares people, but when they realized that the alternative was that the whole pension system would collapse, they thought that this is much better than nothing.
Now, the bulk of pensions is really contribution defined.
So if things are going well for Sweden, pensions are increasing. But if things are going less well, pensions are automatically lowered, which basically takes away from politicians the ability to buy votes by just promising higher pensions and letting future generations pay.
And when it comes to taxes, what Sweden does may surprise you.
Low-income earners in Sweden pay a lot more than low-income earners in America. So despite the fact that Sweden looks like sort of a socialist country which taxes the rich exorbitantly high, the truth is the opposite.
People who earn below average income pay up to 60% in taxes.
This is the dirty little secret about the Swedish tax system. We don't take from the rich and give to the poor. We squeeze the poor because they are loyal taxpayers.
Not taking more from the rich, school choice, privatization. Sweden is anything but socialist.
You can't turn your backs to the well, to the creation of wealth.
You can watch the full documentary, Sweden, Lessons for America, at freetochoose.tv.
Ours was the first revolution in the history of...
Go ahead and put, oh, okay. From now on, if I have somebody come at me with the Sweden thing, I'm just going to forward that video to them. Sweden is not a socialistic country, as you saw. One of the things that really jumped out at me was when they showed the income of $37,000 taxed up to 60%. Think about that. They've taken over half of the people's money. They're not going after the rich. And what that does is that keeps them in control. Now, they have a lot of amenities out of that. And so what people are saying, this article that says Trump's war against socialism will fail. We socialists are trying to save capitalism, and the damn capitalists won't let us. Firmly an idiotic statement. They're not trying to, you might say that socialism is a winning the branding war. 54% said socialism was about those public benefits, while just 43% picked the version that stressed government domination. Americans aged 18 to 29 for whom Cold War memories are dimmed to non-existent were even more inclined to define socialism as social democracy. 58% of them picked the soft option, 38% the hard one. Oh yes, and on those tax increases that conservatives love to hate and associate with socialism of the creeping kind, a Fox News poll last week found that 70% of Americans, this is really hard for me to believe, 70% of Americans favored raising taxes on those incomes of over $10 million. Trump will still probably get some traction with his attacks on socialism, and progressives should remember that social democratic ideas associated with fairness and expanding individual freedoms, and so on and so forth. You know, all you got to do is look. I have an article here on Venezuela. They now have two presidents. They got one that's a real bad guy, and the other guy's trying it. It says Maduro challenger Guaido plans caravans for U.S. aid to Venezuela. Opposition leader Juan Guaido, I guess, I don't know, said Tuesday that he will try to run caravans of badly needed food and medicine into Venezuela, but won't start for nearly 2 weeks, a timeline that threatens to deflate the momentum towards unseating President Nicolas Maduro. Surrounded by thousands of cheering supporters, Guaido set February 23rd as a date for bringing in badly needed U.S. assistance that has been warehoused on the Colombian border since last week, but he provided few details. I don't know, our government's backing this guy. Reason I brought up that article, one of the richest, oil-rich countries in the world. I think they were like number 2 at one time, and number 4 has gone down in the tubes, has just, boom. Excuse me. You want socialism in this country? Don't wake up. Stay on that couch. Don't pay attention. Don't talk to people. Don't do your homework. And one day, your children or our grandchildren will live in a sorry country under socialism and have no future like we did. One of the things that we've seen, and we just reported on this last week, was the drag queen deal at the library. Some people have said to me, well, all they're doing is reading books to them. What's in that book? I have a video here tonight that I was part of and participated in. It's a group called TFP, and don't ask me what the TFP stands for. I never can remember. It's a Catholic organization. And while they were doing the drag queen thing at the library, we were saying the rosary. Spent about an hour out there. I guess you would call it a protest. It was a very peaceful protest. No issues, no problems. Even had a guy from the ACLU show up, taking pictures of everybody there. Found that very interesting. I should have took a picture of him. But what I want to show you is, this is a very well put together video, some interviews in there. Actually, you'll learn that I was quiet and my wife did the talking during the interview, which some people just don't believe. But anyways, we're going to run that video. It's about 3 minutes. You know which one it is? Okay, let's run that. There we go.
The intentions of our rosary in reparation for this infamous act of corruption of the innocence of children, something that we cannot just idly stand by. To do so, we would be corrupted too, as a community. We make an act of reparation. We pray for the conversion of all those who are activists pushing the transgender ideology, trying to work for social change in a way that is detrimental to the commandments of God, destructive of society. For all those who support them in the media, in the education system, in the library system, we pray for them too. We pray that the Catholics awaken, see the danger to the faith and morality that is around us, and begin to act before it's too late. We also pray for our shepherds, who should be leading the flock with courage and standing up to the wolves instead of trying to negotiate with them. We also ask God's graces and mercy for all those who have been victimized by the sin of homosexuality in whatever ranks of the church or in society has taken place. And we add the private intentions of each of you here present for you and your families. I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth.
We need to stand up. We need more and more people to stand up in faith, not be ashamed of your faith, and come out into things like this and support and pray for our children especially.
I have 5 children and 2 grandbabies, and you know, I find that this world has kind of turned away from Jesus, our country especially. They're kind of pushed him out. And I think that's why all this influence is coming in. We're allowing Satan to come into our lives, and it's so important for that not to be an influence over our children.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Don't be afraid to organize peaceful protests like this wherever you are in the country. The tide can turn if enough people pray.
It's not that we have anything against the person. There's an underlying movement that people are not aware of, that they're trying to do away with Christianity, with God.
What concerns me is that if this is going to be acceptable in a public library, it could eventually make its way into public schools. They're so impressionable, and I think what we need to do is protect them from this. And prayer is really our greatest weapon, especially the rosary.
That was a pretty good draw for being Super Bowl day, although I don't think a lot of people in this area watch the Super Bowl. But it goes to show that you can go and do a peaceful demonstration. We had no issues. There were some that approached but stopped. Good people, a lot of good people came out and showed their love and prayed the roads. Spent about an hour there. We just have to keep an eye on this stuff, people. What are our children being indoctrinated into? One of the things that we don't know is what's really being taught in the schools. And what agendas do the teachers have that are teaching our children? I know in the college level that most of the universities are pretty liberal. I know I just had a grandson a year ago or so, graduated from LSU, and told me that he didn't fit in with a lot of the people in his class because he was a conservative. We're at dangerous times, people, in this country. And one of those dangerous things is I'm going to talk about. How many people have heard of the Green New Deal? This was an article out of the Advocate, a retired military officer in New Orleans. The amazing thing about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's goofy Green New Deal is not that she dreamed it up. This wacky scheme is exactly what one would expect from her and her followers. It is not amazing that once it was exposed as errant nonsense, she tried somehow to blame the GOP for its release. Nice try. The amazing thing about this moronic pipe dream is that more than 70 Democratic members of Congress signed on to it. Think about that, 70. Including 4 Democrat presidential candidates. They are Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, and Kirsten Gillibrand. Why does that not surprise me? Of course, once the details of the plan were released and it was held up to the ridicule it so richly deserved, many of the lefty supporters admitted they had no idea what was in the plan when they said they thought it was wonderful. Where have we heard that before? They didn't follow Pelosi's lead. We have to pass it to find out what's in it. I'm surprised that the Speaker of House, Nancy Pelosi, didn't say that we should pass it so we could find out what was in it. No, got ahead of myself there. So what craziness and insanity was in this thing? The 10 most insane requirements of the Green New Deal. A number of Democratic Party presidentials, and I just read that in that article. Today, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and you also hear her called AOC, which has nothing to do with the Acadiana Open Channel. Just so happens that her initials are AOC. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It's not a hyperbole to contend that the GND is likely the most ridiculous and un-American plan that's ever been presented by an elected official to the voters. Going through some of this. Excuse me. Number 1, ban affordable energy. GND calls for the elimination of all fossil fuel energy production, the lifeblood of American industry and life, which includes not only all oil, but natural gas, one of the cheapest sources of American energy. And one of the reasons the United States has been able to lead the world in carbon emissions reductions. Oh my goodness, carbon emission reductions. Do these people understand, this cell phone, part of this cell phone is made up of an oil product. But, so that's one of them. Eliminate nuclear energy. The GND also calls, and GND is the Green New Deal, also calls for eliminating all nuclear power, one of only productive and somewhat affordable clean energy sources. This gets more ridiculous as we go on. Eliminate 99% of the cars. To be fair, under the GN, everyone will need to retrofit their cars with Flintstone-style footholds or pedals for cycling. The GND would like to replace every combustion engine vehicle, trucks, airplanes, boats, and 99% of cars within 10 years. Charging stations for electric cars will be built everywhere, though how power plants will provide the energy needed to charge them is a mystery. There's a good one. Gut and rebuild every building in America. Markey and Cortez want to retrofit every American with state-of-the-art energy efficient, I repeat, every building in America. Here's a really good one. Eliminate air travel. GND calls for building high-speed rail at scale where air travel stops becoming necessary. Good luck, Hawaii. California's high-speed boondoggle is already $100 billion of debt, of which they shut that down today. A government guaranteed job. The bill promises the United States government will provide every single American with a job that includes family-sustaining wage, family and medical leave. Free education for life. Promises free college or trade schools for every American. I don't know what this word, salubrious diet. I guess it's a meat-free diet. That's one of the things in the bill. We all gonna be vegans or whatever the heck it is. A house. GND promises that the government will provide safe, affordable, adequate housing. Free money. GND aims to provide, and I am not making this up, economic security for all who are unable or unwilling to work. Bonus insanity. Ban meat. This stuff is really written up, okay? People can blow it off, but this stuff is actually written up. Ocasio-Cortez admits that we can't get zero emission in 10 years. This has got to be the biggest joke of this whole deal. Because we aren't sure that we'll be able to fully get rid of farting cows and airplanes that fast. The only way to get rid of farting cows is to get rid of beef. The GND uses the word massive to explain size investments. Seriously, it's amazing to me that we come up with this stuff. I mean, it's a joke, but I'll tell you what, it's not such a big joke. And it's something we need to keep our eyes on. I think at this time, after reading that, let's do the one on President Trump. This will get him reelected, or I believe that's the title of it. You have to understand the screen that he's trying to look at on where we got these videos is like we need a magnifying glass to read them.
Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. The Washington establishment and the financial and media corporations that fund it exist for only one reason: to protect and enrich itself. The establishment has trillions of dollars at stake in this election. For those who control the levers of power in Washington and for the global special interest, they partner with these people that don't have your good in mind. Our campaign represents a true existential threat like they haven't seen before. This is not simply another 4-year election. This is a crossroads in the history of our civilization that will determine whether or not we, the people, reclaim control over our government. The political establishment that is trying to stop us is the same group responsible for our disastrous trade deals, massive illegal immigration, and economic and foreign policies that have bled our country dry. The political establishment has brought about the destruction of our factories and our jobs as they flee to Mexico, China, and other countries all around the world. It's a global power structure that is responsible for the economic decisions that have robbed our working class, stripped our country of its wealth, and put that money into the pockets of a handful of large corporations and political entities. This is a struggle for the survival of our nation, and this will be our last chance to save it. This election will determine whether we're a free nation or whether we have only the illusion of democracy, but are in fact controlled by a small handful of global special interests rigging the system, and our system is rigged. This is reality. You know it, they know it, I know it, and pretty much the whole world knows it. The Clinton machine is at the center of this power structure. We've seen this firsthand in the WikiLeaks documents, in which Hillary Clinton meets in secret with international banks to plot the destruction of U.S. sovereignty in order to enrich these global financial powers, her special interest friends, and her donors. Honestly, she should be locked up. The most powerful weapon deployed by the Clintons is the corporate media, the press. Let's be clear on one thing. The corporate media in our country is no longer involved in journalism. They're a political special interest, no different than any lobbyist or other financial entity with a total political agenda, and the agenda is not for you, it's for themselves. Anyone who challenges their control is deemed a sexist, a racist, a xenophobe. They will lie, 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 and then again, they will do worse than that. They will do whatever's necessary. The Clintons are criminals, remember that. This is well documented, and the establishment that protects them has engaged in a massive cover-up of widespread criminal activity at the State Department and the Clinton Foundation in order to keep the Clintons in power. They knew they would throw every lie they could at me and my family and my loved ones. They knew they would stop at nothing to try to stop me. Nevertheless, I take all of these slings and arrows gladly for you. I take them for our movement so that we can have our country back. I knew this day would arrive. It's only a question of when. And I knew the American people would rise above it and vote for the future they deserve. The only thing that can stop this corrupt machine is you. The only force strong enough to save our country is us. The only people brave enough to vote out this corrupt establishment is you, the American people. Our great civilization has come upon a moment of reckoning. I didn't need to do this, folks, believe me. I built a great company, and I had a wonderful life. I could have enjoyed the fruits and benefits of years of successful business deals and businesses for myself and my family, instead of going through this absolute horror show of lies, deceptions, malicious attacks. Who would have thought? I'm doing it because this country has given me so much, and I feel so strongly that it's my turn to give back to the country that I love. I'm doing this for the people and for the movement, and we will take back this country for you, and we will make America great again.
The American form of government. Oh. Okay, back. And I'll show that. I want the American public, we want the American public to see what he said back in 2016 and what he's doing today. And I'm going to hit on the subject because somebody said to me today that the Democrats got Trump under their thumb. I guess he would like them to think that way. He may sign the deal and not get the total amount of money, but I would guarantee you that he'll get the money to build that wall. And he'll do what he's got to do. He will keep his promise. Never in the history of my life have I seen a president, it's just amazing to me how this guy stands up to all this. Day in and day out, they're beating the man up. We're lucky. You may not agree, and I don't agree 100% with what Trump does, but I honestly believe what he said in that speech, he believes till this day. Look, the man was a billionaire. He could be out playing on any number of golf courses, going wherever he wants, and not have to worry about any of this. But he took it on. And it's for us. So those of us who enjoy the freedoms need to back the man up. We need to trust him. Although in this world today, trusting a politician, but see, there's the key word. He's not a politician. Never was and never will be. But he's a smart businessman. We were going to do the Reagan one. But he's a smart businessman. And he's applying that to America. People talk about his economy and it's this and that and all that. Listen, he's brought things back. We got companies coming back in this country. The one thing that I hear on the other side, the left, is that the rich are getting richer. I don't know. Are they? People are investing in businesses. Coal industry's picking up. Steel industry. Some of the tariff stuff might help some and hurt others. But now I believe we got a deal with, let me see if I can remember, with Russia or somebody shipping them rice and shipping them some of our products, which helps the state of Louisiana. But that video shows the heart that man had. He's not doing it for financial gain. Why is he doing it? Why is he putting up with all this crap? Melania. Go ahead.
Good evening, my fellow radicals. I knew you wasn't going to let me down. I knew you wasn't going to let me down. I watched the whole first hour and I watched the whole, second hour. I was waiting. I said, I know my boy is going to come mention the Green U bull crap. I knew it. And okay, I'm not going to comment about any of the things in the Nancy Pelosi called it the Green Dream. First time I agree with anything she ever said. So like I said, everything you said is right. So like I said, I don't have to go into the details because you know all the details. But that is the most ridiculous thing I ever heard of. And I've said this many times over the years. I need to stop saying that. Because every time I say the most ridiculous thing come out, some of the Democrats' mouth, they say something else.
Well, you know the deal here is that this is kicking a couple of presidential candidates in the butt.
Yeah, I know.
For not reading it first and endorsing it. And I'm telling you what.
Obamacare, we got to pass it to know what's in it.
Well, in the Senate now, McConnell, he's forcing a vote, and you know why he's doing that.
Yeah, we try not to laugh.
But he's doing that to get it on record.
I know.
But the thing is, Pelosi pulled it.
Look, so far there's 11 people that announced, they're running for president.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna say something real quick. The first two, I don't know their first name, but the last name. Delaney Yak, Tulsi Gabbard, Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, Julian Castro, Betty, Beto O'Rourke, and Kristen Gillibrand. Listen, I know they got the Democrats watching this show, and some, you know, they don't call in, they just watch the show. I'm telling you, out of these 11 I just named, I'm going to tell you their chance of being president. 0.
Exactly.
Because what's going to happen when these clowns start talking this baloney in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa? They're going to laugh these people off the stage, man.
And
You know what I'm saying?
the whole thing is, and the one thing that scares me the most that happened because the Democrats took over the House, 22 states proven voter fraud. 85,000 illegals voted in California. Okay? And that is why the caravans, that's why they don't want the wall. And so that's the one thing we got to look at in 2020.
I made 4 calls today. I called Ed Markey, Harris, that Muslim rag-headed woman. I can't think of her last name. Oh yeah, but I'm not gonna tell you what I said to these people, but I called, and even Nutjob Major Hirono was asking, how the hell I'm gonna get back and forth from Hawaii to Washington if they got no planes? Yeah, one more comment, then I'm gonna hang up. I saw Kamala Harris on a talk show. Well, I saw some clips of it. She was saying how when she was in college in 1986, you smoked. Well, listen, wait, you saw it?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, you smoked dope and all that stuff. But I call and ask. See, when I call and talk to somebody, sometimes I get the machine, sometimes I get a staff number. But 90% of the time, I ask questions they can't answer. I said, I want to ask you a question. I said, can you answer something? Yes, I'll try. I said, Kamala Harris said 1986, when she was in college doing dope and everything, that the music she listened to was Tupac Shakur and Snoop Dogg. But my question is this. Given the fact, and this is a fact, that Tupac did not make his first recording till 1991.
Absolutely.
And Snoopy Dogg didn't make his recording till 1993. I said, wait. I said, how in the hell did you listen to these in 1986? It was quiet. Well,
it's amazing, baby.
She said, well, I said, let me tell you something before I hang up. You can't answer it because she's the most ridiculous, one of the most ridiculous. I said, no, she's not the most ridiculous woman right now in politics. She's about the third. The first ridiculous is Cortez, this ignorant woman knows nothing. The other one is, I can't think of that lady's last name, the one that made the anti-Semitic with the the red head. But anyway, look, thank you for taking my call. I appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Have a good one. Bye-bye. You know, and a lot, the American people aren't as dumb as we think they are. But the thing is you got to wake up. You got to be talking to people. You know, we have about a 2 or 3 minute video by Reagan. I want you to see it. It's pretty interesting what the man has to say. So we're going to run that right now before the end of the show.
Ours was the first revolution in the history of mankind that truly reversed the course of government, and with 3 little words: we the people. We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car, and we decide where it should go and by what route and how fast. Almost all the world's constitutions are documents in which governments tell the people what their privileges are. Our Constitution is a document in which we, the people, tell the government what it is allowed to do. We, the people, are free. This belief has been the underlying basis for everything I've tried to do these past 8 years. But back in the 1960s, when I began, it seemed to me that we'd begun reversing the order of things. That through more and more rules and regulations and confiscatory taxes, the government was taking more of our money, more of our options, and more of our freedom. I went into politics in part to put up my hand and say, stop. I was a citizen politician, and it seemed the right thing for a citizen to do. I think we have stopped a lot of what needed stopping, and I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited. There's a clear cause and effect here that is as neat and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts.
A lot of pertinent things there. Look, we're going to finish out the night with the video. I'm going to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day and God bless. We're going to run a video on forms of government. So if you want to kick that in, probably won't see us back again, and just have an awesome day tomorrow.
When Benjamin Franklin exited the Constitutional Convention, he was asked by a woman, "Sir, what have you given us?" His immediate response was, "A republic, ma'am, if you can keep it." Yet most Americans today have been persuaded that our nation's governmental system is a democracy and not a republic. The difference between these two is essential in understanding Americanism and the American system. Before we discuss political systems, however, it's helpful to address the confusion that has been spread about the political spectrum. Many have been led to believe that the political spectrum places groups such as communists on the far left, fascists or dictators on the far right, and political moderates or centrists in the middle. However, a more accurate political spectrum will show government having zero power on the far right to having 100% power on the far left. At the extreme right, there is no government. The extreme left features total government under such labels as communism, socialism, Nazism, fascism, princes, potentates, dictators, kings, any form of total government. Those who claim that Nazis and fascists are right-wing never define their terms. This amounts to spreading confusion. Toward the middle of the political spectrum can be found the type of government limited to its proper role of protecting the rights of the people. That's where the Constitution of the United States is. Those who advocate such a form of government are really constitutional moderates. So let's analyze the basic forms of government. They are monarchy or dictatorship ruled by one, oligarchy ruled by a few, democracy ruled by a majority, republic ruled by law, and anarchy, which is ruled by no one. In discussing these five, we'll see that they can be narrowed down to even fewer. Looking first at monarchy or dictatorship, this form of government doesn't really exist in the practical sense. It's always a group that puts one of its members up front. A king has his council of nobles or earls, and every dictator has his bureaucrats or commissars, the men behind the scenes. This isn't ruled by one, even though one person may be the visible leader. It's ruled by a group. So let's eliminate monarchy, dictatorship, because it never truly exists. Oligarchy, which is ruled by a group, is the most common form of government in all history. And it is the most common form of government today. Most of the nations of the world are ruled by a powerful few, and therefore oligarchy remains. At the other end, we find anarchy, which means without government. Some people have looked over history and found that many of its worst crimes were committed by governments, so they decided that having no government might be a good idea. But this is a mistake, because as the ancient Greeks stated, Without law, there can be no freedom. Our founding fathers agreed and held that some amount of government is a necessary force in any civilized, orderly society. In a state of anarchy, however, everyone has to guard life, liberty, and property, and the lives of family members. Everyone must be armed, and movement is severely restricted because one's property has to be protected at all times.
Civilized people have always hired someone to do the guarding, a sheriff, a police force, or some branch of government. Once law enforcement was in place, the people were freer. They could leave their property, work in the fields, and so on. In short, the proper amount of government makes everyone freer. There are some who advocate anarchy, however, not because they want no government, but because they don't like what they have. They use anarchy as a tool for revolutionary change. The condition of anarchy is very much like a vacuum where something rushes in to fill it. These calculating anarchists work to break down the existing government with rioting, killing, looting, and terrorism. Tragically, the people living in such chaos often go to those best able to put an end to it and beg them to take over and restore order. And who is best able to put an end to the chaos? The very people who started it. The anarchists who created the problem then create a government run by them, an oligarchy, where they have total power. This is exactly what happened in Russia that led to Lenin taking total power, and in Germany, where Hitler's brown shirts created the chaos that brought him to power. But anarchy isn't a stable form of government. It's a quick transition from something that exists to something desired by the power-hungry. It's a temporary condition, and because it isn't permanent, we eliminate it as well.
The word democracy comes from two Greek words, demos, meaning people, and kratein, meaning to rule. Democracy, therefore, means the rule of the people, majority rule. This, of course, sounds good, but suppose the majority decides to take away one's home, or business, or children. Obviously, there has to be a limit. The flaw in democracy is that the majority isn't restrained. If more than half the people can be persuaded to want something in a democracy, they rule. What about republic? Well, that comes from the Latin, res meaning thing, and publica meaning public. It means the public thing, the law. A true republic is one where the government is limited by law, leaving the people alone. America's founders had a clean slate to write on. They could have set up an oligarchy. In fact, there were some who wanted George Washington to be their king. But the founding fathers knew history, and they chose to give us the rule of law in a republic, not the rule of a majority in a democracy. Why? Let's demonstrate the difference in the setting of the Old West. Consider a lynch mob in a democracy. 35 horseback riders chase one lone gunman. They catch him, and they vote 35-1 to hang him. Democracy has triumphed, and there's one less gunman to contend with. Now consider the same scenario in a republic. The 35 horseback riders catch the gunman and vote 35-1 to hang him, but the sheriff arrives, and he says, "You can't kill him. He's got his right to a fair trial." So they take the gunman back to town. A jury of his peers is selected, and they hear the evidence and the defense, and they decide if he shall hang. Does the jury even decide by majority rule? No, it has to be unanimous, or he goes free. The rights of the gunman aren't subject to majority rule, but to the law. This is the essence of a republic. Many Americans would be surprised to learn that the word democracy does not appear in the Declaration of Independence or the U.S. Constitution, nor does it appear in any of the constitutions of the 50 states. The founders did everything they could to keep us from having a democracy. James Madison, rightly known as the father of the Constitution, wrote in essay number 10 of the Federalist Papers, "Democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths." Alexander Hamilton agreed, and he stated, "We are a republican government. Real liberty is never found in despotism or in the extremes of democracy." Samuel Adams, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, stated, "Democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself."
The founders had good reason to look upon democracy with contempt, because they knew that the democracies in the early Greek city-states produced some of the wildest excesses of government imaginable. In every case, they ended up with mob rule, then anarchy, and finally tyranny under an oligarchy. During that period in Greece, there was a man named Solon who urged creation of a fixed body of law not subject to majority whims. But where the Greeks never adopted Solon's wise counsel, the Romans did. Based on what they knew of Solon's laws, they created the 12 tables of the Roman law and, in effect, built a republic that limited government power and left the people alone. Since government was limited, the people were free to produce, with the understanding that they could keep the fruits of their labor. In time, Rome became wealthy and the envy of the world. In the midst of plenty, however, the Roman people forgot what freedom entailed. They forgot that the essence of freedom is the proper limitation of government.